I looked through my boyfriend's phone, and I'm so unbelievably thankful I did. I have been dating my boyfriend for about a year, and it was the healthiest relationship I had ever been in. He has been nothing but doting, loving, and caring. We were planning on going on a vacation to celebrate our 1 year. We were planning our years together. Last weekend I woke up before him. I don't know why I did it, but I saw his phone and decided to look through it. What I found shocked me to my core. I searched my name in his messages, and every single text was absolutely foul. He described our intimacy life in detail in group chats, but not in a positive light. He called my intimate parts of my body weird, said he hated the things I did in bed, and making jokes about exact quotes of things I did in bed in the meanest way, saying things like it would be hot, but not when she does it. It's hot for a minute, but then the speech opens her effing mouth and starts speaking. He made fun of my scars in the group chat too. The scars I gave myself after experiencing rope and going through depression in my early teenage years. His entire friend spent hours making fun of what I said, and he absolutely embarrassed me. I wish that was the worst. I'm bi, and he called me the effing F-slur to his friends. He also had endless conversations with his friends about how he can't effing stand me, that I am so effing lame. They had endless conversations about how I don't add anything to conversations, that he's only with me for the intimacy. And the kicker was the following conversation that went, his friend, well, if you move, at least you'll finally have an out with her. Oh yeah, you've convinced me, my boyfriend replied. Is she really that bad? Asked the friend. She's nice enough, but the longer we've dated, I realized I can't effing stand this speech in public. I looked through my boyfriend's phone, and I am so unbelievably thankful I did, and it went on, and on, and on. Every single insecurity I have ever had was laid out in group chats with his closest friends, made into a joke, made into a punchline. He made fun of me, had entire conversations about how much he couldn't stand me, so much so that it was a running joke about how he was trying to get out of this relationship with his friends. The messages were also filled with absolute misogynistic, homophobic, racist things, saying things about how he just ignores me when I talk because he can't effing stand when broads are talking, saying how women should never be in charge of plans, anything. Talking about how people like me were the reason the world was going to crap. I woke him up, and he tried to explain things away, saying how he didn't mean it. But the damage had been done. I realized that after all this time I had absolutely no clue who this person was. I could not recognize him. The worst part? After years of therapy, of losing myself completely and rebuilding myself from scratch from my prior abusive relationship, I ended up dating another person who viewed me the same way as my ex-abuser, and honestly said much worse. I have never in my life seen someone whose personality was so unbelievably split. Every one of our mutual friends was shocked beyond belief when I showed them the receipts. None of them could believe it either. I just feel so sick to my stomach. I've never met someone who could be two completely polar opposite people in the most extreme way. I wish he steps on a Lego. Today I effed up by accidentally destroying my boyfriend's family. I accidentally revealed that my boyfriend's mom was cheating by pointing out the fact that his older siblings, who both had the blood type AB, could not have been biologically related to their own negative father. I was an 18-year-old female dating my 18-year-old boyfriend, Jacob, at the time, and his father, who was in his early 60s, was a mechanic, and his mom, mid-50s, was a stay-at-home mom. They were a pretty typical white suburban family in the South, and I had asked Jacob if they could meet me even though we had only been dating for a month. At the dinner, I met his mom, dad, older brother, older sister, and her newborn daughter. The dinner went well, and I was chatting about my volunteer work at my college's blood drive, to which his father explains that his doctor told him he was O negative and a universal blood donor. My boyfriend mentions he is also O, but his siblings casually mention they are both AB. I don't think anything of it because my boyfriend had mentioned that his mom was married once before and was widowed. The following conversation went like this. I said, "Oh, that's really cool. You're a really rare blood type. If you don't mind me asking, Is your mom's blood type A and your dad's B, or your dad's A and mom's B? The older sister goes, What do you mean? He's O. Gesturing to my boyfriend's father, I go, Oh, I know. I was just asking about your bio father. But of course, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I notice his mom get really pale, and it was in that moment I realized I effed up. Today I effed up by accidentally destroying my boyfriend's family. The older brother goes, What do you mean, bio father? I just started profusely apologizing and said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. Then, Jacob's dad got real quiet and looking at his wife's face. He knew instantly. I look over to Jacob, who I think was starting to put the full picture of what was happening together. Jacob's dad asked, Are you saying they're not my biological kids? Because my wife swore up and down in marriage counseling that they were my kids and she would never cheat on me. Yeah, turns out she never had any kids from her previous marriage. Jacob's mom said, I would never cheat on you. They are definitely your kids. Don't be ridiculous. Jacob's dad then turns to me and says, Why do you think they're not my kids? I try to excuse myself because it was very clear the cat was out of the bag, and with a quick Google search for my boyfriend, he starts cussing out his mom. She starts to sob and apologizes over and over again. And I am forced to explain ninth grade biology to his father about the fact that the only kids he could have produced were with a blood type, O, A, or B, but absolutely not AB. Jacob was the only one with the possibility of being his son. They all start screaming at one another. Jacob's older sister eventually leaves because her newborn is screaming too. His mom goes and locks herself in the bedroom. Jacob's older brother follows her screaming, asking who his real father is. My boyfriend is trying to figure out if his dad still wants to be their father. I eventually have a friend come pick me up. We broke up shortly after, but not after figuring out that none of the kids produced from the marriage were his, and they divorced soon after. Am I the a-hole for not waking up early and helping my mother-in-law with chores? I, F25, has been married for a year now. It is customary in our culture that women stay with their in-laws after marriage. I didn't subscribe to this and told my husband, then boyfriend, before marriage itself that I want to live separately. He agreed since he himself wanted to live away from parents and build his own life. But as a compromise, we would still visit them and stay at their place every couple of months. It is again customary. Dill helps mother-in-law with household tasks, the stench of patriarchy. In our house, that is mine and husband's, we are equals. We do chores together. In in-law's place, it's always his mom who does majority of chores. She was a psalm too. When I am visiting, I am expected to help her with the chores, not my husband, just me. I just rope him in as well. The main issue is that everyone there wakes up at 5:36 a.m. That's way too early for me even on days when I have work. Since we go there on my off days, I just want to sleep in. At least till 8 to 9 a.m. Initially they didn't say much about this, just a bit of snide comments that I let go. Use my own battles and all. But today morning, my mother-in-law made a big show of how I never help her with chores. Let me clarify. She wakes at 6 a.m. and finishes most tasks by 9 a.m. By the time I am awake, it's all done. I help prep, but that doesn't count to her. The fact I don't slave away in kitchen is making her mad. When she went on a whole woe on me act, my husband, who normally supports me, also got mad at me. He asked why I couldn't wake up few days out of a month earlier than I want to and help his mom. When I said he can help his mom himself since he wakes up anyway, he said that's not the point. He said he doesn't ask much of me, and this is least I can do. Respect his parents when we are staying under their roof. I got mad and told him, I don't want to stay under their roof, and neither do I have to. With that, I just packed my bags and left that place. Am I the a-hole for not waking up early and helping my mother-in-law with chores? Now my parents and husband are blasting my phone for overreacting. Am I the a-hole? 'Cause I see a lot of comments asking me to help my mother-in-law. No one has anywhere to be. It's literally the weekend. There's no requirement for things to be done by that time, other than the fact it is how we do here. And I help her meal prep, cut veggies and everything the night before. I clean the house too, roping in my husband as well, though we literally visit for 2 days. Also to people who commented I shouldn't go then, my initial agreement, before marriage with them and my husband was that I wouldn't go. I work full-time in a different city. I want to relax on weekends. They kept calling, begging, and guilt-tripping. I finally agreed to visit. As in, 1 weekend a month. We go there Friday after office and return Sunday night. That's literally the entire weekend and duration of stay. If I wasn't there, I would be sleeping until 12 noon of after. Husband knows this well. As I respect his home, I am getting at 8-9. It feels like yet another working day to me. Getting at 6 a.m. is like overtime on already hectic 12-day week. To all who are guessing, yes, I am Indian. From Kerala, to be precise. And yeah, I know many other cultures have this in common. Reading each of your stories makes me sadder and braver at the same time. To everyone who is saying you know what you married into, now do as they want. A bit of backstory. I am from the same culture they are. I grew up seeing my mom work harder hours than my dad, get home later and using crowded public transport while my dad used own vehicle, and then make tea for him. It sounds very simple. A tea, right? It's not. It's coming on struggling in public transport, and as soon as you reach having to go, make tea for a man who has reached home from his job 10 minutes away in own vehicle. Make him tea and dinner while he watched TV. I know the fight she fought and fate she accepted. I know even after 30 years of marriage she is upset he unalived my baby and my boyfriend's family hates me. Found out I was pregnant a month ago. I've been on birth control since I was 15. Same pill. I'm enrolled in school, have a job, and an apartment in a city close to home. I have a cat too. Everything was perfect. 6 weeks ago I missed my period. I waited 10 days and missed my period. This wasn't normal. I originally started the pill because of my irregular period. Did I miss a pill? I counted twice, 3 times, 4. No extras. I looked at the open pack I had for this month and the unopened one for next month. They weren't expired. They were exactly the same, down to the print of the expiration date. I fished the trash can for last month's empty package. Same thing. I couldn't stop thinking about it. On the way to class that morning, I grabbed 3 pregnancy tests from the campus bookstore. I've never taken a pregnancy test, but I've always heard the phrase, pee on a stick. So I opened all 3 and used them at the same time. I waited 3 minutes and washed my hands, grabbing each of the tests in a paper towel. All 3 of them were positive. I cried. I dry heaved. I wanted to pass out on the bathroom floor. I called my boyfriend and he was as excited as ever. I was panicking, saying we weren't ready for a baby, how I couldn't stay in school and work with a newborn, how I would lose everything. I'm not ready. I don't want children right now. He started to say how I was selfish and would just have to put my classes and whatnot on hold until the baby was old enough to go to daycare. That made me nauseous. I told him I was coming home and he met me there. He held me and cried, saying how happy he was. I felt so disgusted with myself for knowing I didn't want this baby after seeing him cry like that. I wanted to try and keep the baby for him. I thought about having the baby and just leaving him with it. I thought about disappearing and never having the baby. After a few days, I had to ask what he thought of me getting rid of the baby. He told me he would hate me. He would never speak to me again. He laid into me, going on and on about me being a baby carrier, how I was selfish, evil, and immature for even thinking something like that. We got into a huge argument from there and I made him leave. He broke my TV and my favorite vase. I cried for him for days, begging him to take me back. He said I would if I kept the baby. Needless to say, he didn't take me back. I spent every night after that drinking bottle after bottle of Jim Beam whiskey. I miscarried in the dead of the night on a Thursday. Thought I had a really bad stomach bug until I saw the blood in my toilet. My neighbor took me to the hospital where my now ex's sister works. He showed up with my mom, his mom, and his dad. While she half-hugged me, his mom and dad made comments about how I probably did this on purpose, considering I didn't want the baby anyway. I just kept my mouth shut. My mom asked if they were here to support me or their son, and if they weren't here for me, they should just leave. They started arguing, and eventually it got loud and security escorted everyone out. But not before my ex and his family could start shouting at the top of their lungs how I'm a baby cakier and I'm going to hell, and I'm in so much pain, I'm so tired, and I'm so angry everything had to come to this. I really loved him, and now I feel like I'm losing everybody because of this. My fiancé had a tantrum because I skipped his family dinner to see my dying sister. I got engaged to my partner of 7 years, Ray, in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June, when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister Casey got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at a high risk of a perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold, and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with Ray's brother. Kaisa's wife was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mom was away with our stepdad, so when Casey called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at the hospital on her own. I immediately talked to my boss, and he let me go early so Casey wasn't on her own. I texted Ray to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kay his love and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal, as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Casey was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Casey. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued, or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation, or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make the dinner, and texted Ray to let him know. He flipped out and basically told me to leave Casey at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the op was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kaisa's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen, and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I called out my innocent husband on his baby behavior. He throws tantrums and hits people when they don't agree with him. Poor baby. I, 29 Canadian, met my, now, husband, 29, Egyptian Canadian, in early 2021 via a dating app, but we had mutual friends already, same university. I quickly fell for him, and after a year we got engaged. 2 months later, we had our Kapatub Nikah Islamic ceremony. It was very small, immediate family only. Our wedding reception is in 1 week, 4.5 months after the Kapatub. There is obviously a fair amount of stress, as we're stretched pretty thin, to make the wedding work shortly after purchasing our first home. My husband is in a new job, and I'm in a famously high-stress job. I definitely acknowledge I have not been my best self lately, trying to make ends meet and get myself through each day, frankly. On to the red flag. My husband is a charismatic, funny guy. He's loud, as am I. His personality has been something I've loved about him since I met him. But lately there's less humor and more commentary on world politics, sometimes right-wing conspiracy, or what I would call conspiracy, type stuff. It's preachy. When I engage, it quickly becomes a fight, seemingly regardless of my stance. When I take issue with his tone and personal attacks, I get yelled at or told I'm purposefully vilifying him. He's starting to shout at me more often. Today it was in front of his whole family. It was humiliating. I cried. It was over me pushing back when his family told me they had already done the seating chart for their guests, despite not having the entire guest list. I called out my innocent husband on his baby behavior. I did not think I was being rude, but I just explained that I needed to work off the draft I had because I knew it had all guests on it. I was reassuring her she could rearrange tables if I got stuff wrong. My husband interjected himself from the next room, shouting at me for saying his mom didn't know everyone that was coming. Then he shouted that he wasn't shouting. We were shouting. I shouldn't have. But I called him out on his immaturity. I called him out for yelling in front of our nephews, 971, who were there. I told him to stay out of it if he was going to yell. We finished the seating chart, and I left to stay with my parents. We are visiting from out of town. It's been 5 hours since the incident, and I haven't heard from my husband. When I left, I gave everyone a quick hug goodbye, including my husband. He didn't walk me to my car. He's been shouting at me more at home, too. I avoid certain topics altogether. It got physical once, and he put his hand on my throat. He apologized profusely for this and blamed it on frustration at my poor memory during an argument we were having. Sometimes he pushes me. which I find super embarrassing in public. He shoves me out of the way if I go to pay at the store, despite us often alternating who pays. I have verbalized that my parents don't treat each other that way. I have told him I don't want to be treated that way. I have explicitly said, don't shout at me, don't push me, threatened to involve his older brothers. I'm sure I'm extra upset right now for a handful of reasons: wedding stress, menses not praying, work stress, but I'm starting to worry that I'm being willfully blind here. I think my mom slept with my high school boyfriend. My boyfriend and I started dating when I was 14 and he was 17. We dated for like 3 months in high school and broke up. He then dated one of my best friends and told me he'd break up with her if I date him again, so being young and naive I did. So we dated for like another year. I had to move across the country with my family. This time it was a super messy breakup. We were in the middle of fighting over text, and he messaged saying, "You know what? I slept with your mom," and sent a picture as proof. I briefly looked at the picture, enough to be like, "Yep, that looks like my mom," and then deleted it and blocked him. I didn't want to believe it, so I just didn't think about it. So I just locked that away for about 10 years. I'm now married to the love of my life and have 2 young kids. We live far from my mom, and she came to visit and drove here. We only see her once a year. While she was here, she kept lying about small things, just small little lot here and there, but it bothered me. After she left, it boiled over and I called her out and told her I don't appreciate being lied to, especially about dumb things that don't matter. It escalated and I hung up on her. She then makes a group chat with me and my husband and sends another message about how she didn't lie, but that she has to lie because she knows how I'll act weird if she does not make up these little lies. I messaged back, "Okay, liar." She then sends a text about something I said 2 years ago when I was complaining about my husband's family to her. This made me see red, because I feel like that's why she made a group chat with me and my husband, so she could send that to him. I don't know if it was to hurt me by hurting him, to make him mad at me so I'm fighting a war on 2 fronts, or to get my husband on her side of the argument. I think my mom slept with my high school boyfriend. Either way, I lost it. I told her I know she slept with my high school boyfriend. She proceeds to keep texting me about how she's an adult and I'm not her mom, and it doesn't matter why she lies to me or what she's doing. She ignores the thing about sleeping with my ex. So I send it again, like 2 more times, before she's finally like, "Stop sending that crap to my phone," and then tells me I'm crazy and need medication. So since then, I've been no contact with her. I do believe she slept with my ex, but also I'm worried about if he was lying and said that to ruin our relationship. It's something I've ignored for 10 years, but now that I've said it aloud, so many things make sense. When we first dated, she went through my phone and read my messages with him to my aunt, and they made fun of me at Thanksgiving. Back when I was still dating him, but after we moved across the country, she went through my phone and read our dirty texts aloud at the dinner table. And I always wondered why she did that. She has always been weird with my exes. Every guy I've dated, she keeps them friended on Snapchat and messages them after we break up and updates me on what they're up to. My ex was crazy. He dated my best friend to get back at me so I 100% could see him sleeping with my mom, just so he could use it as ammo against me later. My mom is a narcissist. My older brother is no contact with her and has been for 3 years now. So here's my issue. Where do I go from here? I know she's going to try to reach out and deny it, but she lies about everything, so I know I won't believe her. I really don't know how she could prove her innocence to me. Even if my ex reached out and told me he was lying and made it up, I would just think she messaged him and paid him off.